Have you ever been in that spot where your team's diagrams are, either way too simple to be useful or so ridiculously complex that nobody wants to make them? Well, today we're going to explore a completely new way of thinking about this. We're moving past that all-or-nothing approach to something much more flexible, the visual communication continuum.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. To really get this whole continuum idea, we first have to appreciate why we even bother with diagrams in the first place. And this slide, it just nails it. Our brains are absolute visual processing powerhouses. We can understand an image almost instantly, while text, that's a slow word-by-word process. That raw speed is exactly what we're trying to tap into.
So at their very core, that's all diagrams are. It's a fancy way of saying we're using pictures and symbols to explain stuff. They're our go-to tool for taking really complicated ideas, like a whole software architecture, and making them something you can just get, in a single glance. But, and this is a huge but, there's a massive problem, especially with those simple boxes and lines diagrams we all make. We draw them, we talk over them in a meeting, and then it's like all the important information just vanishes into thin air. Let's call this the sieve of knowledge. You've been there, right? You're in a meeting, looking at this complex diagram, and someone's explaining what every little box and arrow means. You're nodding along, it's all making perfect sense. But then a week goes by, and all that rich context, the why behind it all, it's just gone. So why does that keep happening? And this metaphor, it is just perfect. This is exactly the problem. All that crucial info, the stuff that's only shared verbally in the meeting, like why this system talks to that one, it just flows right through the diagram. There's nowhere for it to stick. The diagram shows the structure, sure, but it leaks all the actual knowledge.
And hey, it's not just us noticing this. Simon Brown, the guy who created the C4 model, he points out that super formal tools like UML are often seen as way too heavy. So what do teams do? They ditch them completely, and they're left with nothing but these leaky, bare-bones diagrams, basically losing their ability to share complex ideas in a lasting way.
So this leaves us in a real bind. Simple diagrams leak too much information, but those formal, superstructured models often feel like way too much work. It's like we're stuck on two totally separate islands with this giant chasm in between. So how in the world do we find a middle ground?
For way too long, we've been told we have to choose a side. Over here, you've got the island of bare diagrams, super fast and easy to make, totally flexible. The downside? They're a chaotic mess that leaks information like crazy. And way over there is the island of formal models. They're structured, they're powerful, they hold tons of information, but man, are they rigid and a massive pain to learn and maintain.
But what if that whole way of thinking is just wrong? What if we stop looking at it as this impossible choice between two extremes? Let's reframe this whole thing. What if we could actually build a bridge between those two islands?
And that is the big idea right here. We can treat all of this as a continuum, a spectrum, It lets us start really simple with our basic boxes and lines, and then, this is the key, gradually add just enough structure and just enough detail exactly when we need it. No more, no less. This is the visual communication continuum.
Okay, so this continuum thing sounds cool in theory, right? But what does that first step onto the bridge actually look like in the real world? Well, it starts with a concept called direct generation.
Direct generation is an absolute game changer. It takes the diagrams you're probably already making in a tool like Draw.io and just makes them better, instantly. In like under 10 minutes, you can turn a static picture into a clickable, interactive website. You can finally write down what each box means. You can link from a high-level component down into a detailed subdiagram. You can even pull diagrams from different teams together into one place. Just like that, the sieve is plugged. Okay, so that first step is huge, no question. But what happens when you need more consistency across a really big team, or even your whole company? How do you make sure everyone is drawing things the same way and speaking the same visual language? This is where we take the next step up on our continuum. So we can think about this next level, called semantic mapping, by using an analogy from programming. Direct generation is kind of like JavaScript. It's super flexible, you can do whatever you want, it's weakly typed. Semantic mapping, though, that's more like Java. It's strongly typed. It introduces rules, a bit of structure, and it's all governed by a central set of definitions, a metamodel. Now, the real magic here is that when you define a metamodel, you're not just making rules for diagrams. You are literally creating a shared language for your entire organization. Suddenly, a container means the exact same thing to the brand new developer, the seasoned architect, and even to an automated script because it has one official definition. And this,
Right here, this is the payoff. Look at this, that API application box. It's not just a shape with some words in it anymore. It knows what it is. It knows it's a container, and you can just hover over it or click a link to see exactly what that means. The diagram becomes self-aware. It becomes intelligent.
Now, when you follow this continuum, starting from those leaky diagrams, moving to documented websites, and then to these semantically rich models, it leads us to a place that is truly mind-blowing. This isn't just about making better documentation anymore. The ultimate vision is so much bigger. The end of the line, the final destination on this continuum, is this: a digital pipeline. We're talking about a world where the diagrams we create don't just describe the system, they become the direct input for an automated process that generates code, sets up infrastructure, and actually builds the running system. The diagram becomes the single source of truth. And that leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. For our entire careers, we've used diagrams as pictures about the software. But what happens when the diagram is the software? What new worlds open up when our visual communications become truly executable? That's the future this continuum makes real.